Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Kaged Nation. It's Kevin Jackwitz. And so for my first couple of tutorials for how to draw the face with the eyes and the mouth, I realized that my hand was kind of blocking the view of what I was actually drawing. So I'm changing sides and hopefully that'll give you guys an actual better illustration of what I'm drawing. Because, to be fair, the last two did not. So I'm going to start with the third part of this presentation, which is the nose. And the nose is different from the eyes and the mouth in that the eyes have very hard lines around the eyeball itself where the eyelids meet the eye. It's very dark. You have dark lines where you get these little creases, the wrinkles that your eyelids make. Same with the mouth. You have very dark lines with your teeth here, where it's showing the empty space in your mouth and in the back. The nose is much different. Other than the nostrils, everything is shading. Absolutely everything is not drawn, but shaded in. So, let's go ahead and start with the hard lines. You're going to start with the nostrils. And with the nostrils, you can make these as absolutely as dark as you need to. I would say go very, very dark on this. And so that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to go incredibly dark. There's actually a couple of small nose hairs here I'm going to draw in. Sorry, shame. That's just how life goes. I understand. I'm 42. 40 also, I should say. But we're going to be accurate as we can. We're just going to draw a couple of real small lines very faintly. It might actually be hard for the camera to pick up how small these lines are, but they're there. So a couple of very thin white lines that kind of signify where he's got a couple of nose hairs. Age is a bitch. And so we're going to keep this really, really dark all the way through. And then there's a lot of shadow right here. And it kind of stops rather abruptly. And the reason for that is the nostril, like if this is the nose, the nostril actually comes from this canal down here. And so what this is the middle part of the nose going down to where it meets right here. So you have just a very, very small lip right there. And this is going to be all black. And this is going to be very dark, not quite as black. Just a slight separation of color here. And what that'll do is give you that nice shadowed look. Alright, so one nostril down, not too bad. This one's actually a little oblong by comparison. So we're going to have the same thing here where the nostril meets the ball of the nose. And this is going to have a nice smooth curve right here. And right here. It's going to meet underneath, and it's kind of going to Where this got lighter right here, this is going to get lighter slightly right here. So we're going to go ahead and draw in the same thing here. He's got a couple of nose hairs here as well, and we're going to go ahead and draw those lines in. And to be fair, if you're trying to draw this and just make it look somewhat accurate, you don't need to get that nose hair detail in there. But if you really want to get accurate, it's there. I actually like artists that get as finely detailed as they can. I'm not nearly a great artist, but I do have a good eye. And I do believe that artwork is a whole lot of just observation. Okay. So I'm going to get this really dark right here and then start to lighten it up right here. Almost at the very, very edge, and I'm just going to start making a lighter light around. And here, this is actually a much lighter shadow. So you want there to be a very, very big difference between the nostril and this shadow that kind of touches the actual skin of that right nostril. You want there to be a much lighter shade going around so you can tell that there is something else going on there and that it's actually skin. Okay, so we have the nostrils, we have the setup. Now we need to finally bring in the face as a whole. And this is where it can get tricky as far as making the portrait actually look like the person. Now obviously you need your dimensions right, you gotta have the face looking right. But shading is equally as important, because without the shading correct, it starts to look like a completely different person. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our lines are just so. Start with light lines. You know, when you're practicing drawing faces, especially if you're new, don't be afraid to go light to start, because the reason you go light is to make sure that you have your dimensions right. That way if you make a mistake, it's a lot easier to erase. All right. So we're going to go ahead and play connect the dots here. And this is going to be nothing but shadow right here. Just a little bit of shadow to accent where the light is bouncing off of this nostril. And then down here, we're going to do much the same thing. We're going to give this a little extra depth right there. And you kind of want this to come to a point. You want it to kind of wrap up a little bit and become a point. And then this comes out And as you're doing that, you might as well go ahead and take this whole shadow. It basically starts from right here where the main nostril shadow on the bottom starts. And there's going to be a lighter shadow that follows behind it. It goes all the way down into the stash. And that is essentially where the cheek muscle meets the lip muscle. And so you lightly shade to about 3/4 of the way down the stash. It's going to come down fairly quickly. The reason I emphasize lightly is because it's really hard on the lighter shading, especially since he has such a light skin tone, to come back and erase and then have to do it all over again. It's going to be a real pain in the ass. So, you don't want to do that. Now this one here is going to be much different. It's a much longer shadow. And you may get to a point where you notice that some faces that you draw aren't exactly symmetrical. And the truth is that most faces that you're going to draw are not really symmetrical. They're not. It's actually a rarity that you get a genuinely symmetrical face where everything is, you know, perfectly even on both sides. My face is not symmetrical at all. Very few people are. I think Angelina Jolie's is pretty close, but... And then the same thing, you're just going to do a light shade. And I'm actually going to extend this lid out. And remember, if you've watched the other tutorials, I really like to, if I'm going to light shade, to extend my lid out. And that way I can get a little bit more horizontal with it. And it gives me a lighter shading ability. And it's pretty helpful, honestly. If you're trying to do light shading, it gives you more control over your lid. So nothing too difficult yet. Now what you want to do is very lightly again, bring the nostrils down where they are going to meet the rest of the face. And you do it lightly. And you just kind of bring this across, and that'll give you pretty much exactly where you need to be. This is going to be it's not going to be 90-degree angle here. There's going to be a curve to it, but it's going to be more 90-degree than the other side. And this will give you a good place to shadow in all of this. And you can kind of see how the face is starting to come together. Let me make sure I can actually, you guys can actually see that. I'm going to bring it up a little bit here so you can really see. And of course, we're going to do the dark shading later. So don't worry about that for now, because step-by-step process. First, you draw in the features of the face. As you can see, I did the mustache and the hairline here, and I'm going to work on getting the actual hair done. And I'll show you how to do the hair. The hair, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time showing you how to do. It's really basic once you know what you're doing. And for these lines, literally all I did was make small flicking lines. It's not that bad. And then I do a shading underneath it. Really not tough to do. So Seamus's nose is kind of a challenge, just because you can tell this guy's had his nose broken once or twice. So, is what it is. He's going to have a pretty extreme angle from his eyebrow to his nose. And it's going to curve back in here. And that's why I say it's kind of an oddball thing, because his nose is very crooked. It has been broke. And so what we're going to do is we're going to draw the line where the nose would normally be, which would be up here, and we're going to meet that line where it's all crooked with just nothing but shading. And again, that's the hard thing about the nose, is it is truly nothing but shading. And he's going to have quite the shadow here on both sides of his nose. There's quite a bit of shadow. So we're going to do the same thing over here, just kind of figure out where that's going. And I feel like this is actually a little bit too narrow, so we're going to fix that right there. And that's why you do it lightly. And anytime you do that, try not to rub it with your fingers, because that will smear everything. Much better. So you kind of, from here, you want to do the shading that's going to expand all the way out into the rest of the brow here. You want to give it some depth, which means you get darker the closer you get in, and you gradually get lighter as you move out. And same when you're going down. You want to gradually get it lighter. And for Seamus, there's really not much you want to get too dark because he's so fair-skinned. That actually does kind of make it difficult at times to differentiate the shading. It can be kind of a pain. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. You're going to get this really nice dark area right at the bridge of the nose. And then from there you're going to very quickly shade it to a lighter tone. And this side of his face is definitely going to be shaded darker than the other side. There's a bit more of a shadow here, which is nice because it gives you a little bit more playroom as far as being able to layer it on a little bit. Now for his eye here, the middle is a lot lighter than the outsides of the eyeball up top here, over the eyelid. So this middle section needs to be incredibly light. You'll notice light is the word of the day because, like I said, he's so fair-skinned. It's very, very difficult to not draw and overdo some of the shading. So I have to emphasize that you need to keep a very soft touch when you're shading his skin. A very soft touch. And it is definitely starting to come out. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a lot more shading on the inside of everything. But I wanted to get this done. So for the last part of the nose, you're gonna have a little crease here. This is a little indent where it's gonna have the bridge of the nose. And then you're gonna lightly shade on the side of this, bring it in. And you're gonna have an even lighter one on this side. And same thing, we're just gonna bring that in so it blends in nice. And that's it. That's all you do to draw the nose. Now the shading is a different story. Obviously you're shading to get the nose formed, but then you're gonna come over the whole face when you're done and shade everything together. So I will show you that the next time. And well, actually that'll be the last thing I do, is the full shading of the face. Hopefully you guys can get kind of the full visual there. Let me see if I can't pull that back a little bit. That's what we got so far. And I'm gonna come in next time. I guess I should do a tutorial for the ears, and then I'm gonna do one for the hair, and then the rest of the face, and then you'll know how to draw a face. So yeah, I think that's my plan. My next tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to do. I'll do this ear next. I'll show you how to do that. Then I'll do a tutorial for the hair. Then I'll do a tutorial for the rest of the face, blending and putting it all together. And that'll be it, man. That's the face as a whole. So far you got eyes, mouth, nose. Now you need ears, hair, and blending. And that will be it. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this. My name is Kevin Jackwitz with the Kaged Review. Take care. Have a good day.